Hey there, chitheads, and welcome back to another episode of Board Chitless. I'm Leki, and this week I'm joined by
Daz,
Anthony,
and Tristan.
Welcome back, Anthony. It's been a little while since you last joined us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We had a nice little chat about Splendid, didn't we?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and now you're back.
Splendid.
Back for some Viticulture, which has been very exciting. Oh, is it? I'm gonna put money down on very exciting.
Exciting to have Anthony back, or exciting to play Viticulture?
Bit of both,
or neither.
Bit of both. Each event on its own would have probably left me a little disappointed, but you combine the two.
I get that a lot, actually, yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm a happy chappy. So let's get on with it. Is there any news, Tristan?
Yeah. We're going to UK Games Expo, and you're coming.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
And you guys, are you not coming?
There's an invite.
I think it's the same weekend of the beer festival that we were talking about.
Oh, really?
Oh, disappointing. Skip this.
Sorry, Daz. Yeah. So really. But so Tristan's attending UK Games Expo.
UK Games Expo, we've got stand 1-1016, 1016. So it's 50 away from 1066, which is disappointing, but logistically necessary. And it's on Kilforth Avenue.
I was just going to say, that's ace. And you can come speak to Tristan or Francesca or myself or Sam about any of the Whole Nothing Productions games, or about the podcast.
Or about Board Chitless.
Or about games that you like, but don't probably talk to Tristan for too long about stuff that isn't Whole Nothing Productions, because he'll be trying to shill copies of his game onto other people. And you'll be there for the whole weekend?
Yes, we're there from Thursday, I think, so right through to Sunday. So hopefully the voice will remain intact, and we'll get lots of demos of all the games. We're taking down copies of everything that we can carry, so dead excited about it.
Sick, nice.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Oh, and a pledge manager for Shadows of Kilforth is now open, and pre-orders are available for Shadows of Kilforth and Gloom of Kilforth and all the expansions and playmats.
Excellent. So drop your mail chickens and grab your credit cards and get those late pledges in for Shadows of Kilforth, because it's a great game and you'll really like it.
All right.
Promise. Okay then, so Viticulture Essential Edition is a worker placement game for 1
to 6 players of full Automa solo mode.
Ace.
Included.
1 to 6 players, based in pre-modern Italy.
Tuscany.
Oh, so even more specific. So
designed by Jamie Stegmaier, Alan Stone, and Morten Monrad Pedersen.
Oh, he did the Automa, didn't he?
He did.
That's where he comes in.
Yeah. I've not had a chance to play with the Automa, so probably don't big that up too much just yet. But I've no doubt, given that he's involved, that it'll be very detailed, very cool and interesting.
Well, there you go. So everybody owns their own winery that they've been landed with from a dead relative, and it's your job to make it up, make the infrastructure a bit better.
Should
make
we
some wine?
Point out quickly as well. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
There, you were in mid-flow, and I did rudely interrupt. But this is not a shill copy. So we have had a couple of Stonemaier Games sent to us in previous podcasts, such as Euphoria, and Between Two Castles and Mad King Ludwig. This I bought out of my own money, so. It's
your own investment.
We're not being bribed to
completely impartial.
Positive.
Yeah, we do our best to be impartial anyway, wouldn't we? Even if it was a review copy sent from the generosity of a publisher.
Oh yeah.
We'd
slag it off mercilessly.
It's not happened yet. But
Well, I ended up buying 2 Castles.
Did you after we played it?
Copy, so. Effectively,
so
we bought
was that from playing the game, or was it from listening to Board Chitless after the fact? And you in Board Chitless?
Yeah, I was
selling it to yourself.
The game, sold it to myself, listened to the podcast afterwards, listened to it again because it was so good, and
bought the game.
Rebought the game.
People always do like to listen to things that reinforce their own view, and I suppose that is particularly effective when it is your own view that you're listening to.
It's the best form of marketing.
We do
self-marketing.
Yeah, we do record quite late though and play quite late, so maybe Daz just forgot if he had a good time or not. I was like, I'll check on the podcast. Sounds like I did. I'll put some money down and see if he enjoys it.
Let's hope it happens with this one, or not.
We might end up with 8 copies each. So anyway, so you're running a winery, and there's all sorts of different mechanics involved, as long as it involves putting a worker down and making them do stuff so that you get wine or money for the wine, or maybe a nice new field How did everyone? Exactly, you're right to look at me like that, Daz. I don't know where I'm going. What did everyone think of the theme? Was it a nice theme for the game? Did you get into it?
I thought it was a lovely theme, but I think it because prior to this we had a game of Scythe, didn't we? Which obviously is a bit more angry war kind of thing. Then looking at this one, I thought this could be a nice little soothing departure from that.
We could have done the podcast on Scythe, but we already have about 5 or 6.
Yeah,
Scythe
there's a lot of
so we
episode
skipped over that.
4 or 5, so we'll check that. But so it was quite nice going into a nice, relaxed, dipping into the beautiful artwork, taking yourself away to the lush fields of Tuscany, and with it just being worker placement and no war or that much kind of competitiveness or people coming to attack you. Thought it was a nice change of pace. But then you can't just sort of get too lost in it and stop thinking about what you're going to do completely, because that's when you lose. It picked up the pace quite nicely. But I got into it. The theme was really interesting.
Yeah, I'd agree. I thought it was interesting, different. What I liked in the majority of instances were that the mechanisms kind of fit as well and kind of made sense. That wasn't completely universal. I'm not quite sure how the visitors necessarily kind of work. However, everything about crushing the grapes, harvesting your fields, turning that into wine, selling that wine, the mechanisms I thought really kind of brought the theme out as well. So I thought that was, you're absolutely right, it is a lovely kind of idea and theme, but I also thought that it kind of made sense in what you were doing as well. Really, really good.
It didn't feel like a holiday in Italy most of the time. There was a few times where I felt a bit of analysis paralysis, and I was just wondering, what do I do now? I've got one worker, but 17 different things that I want to do with him. So it did keep it interesting, really, even though it's a fixed board. Nothing changes from game to game too much, apart from your owners decide what card to start with, and
the mamas and papas. So there's like 2 decks, isn't there, of mamas and papas, and they determine your starting outcome. But it's pretty much just a different collection of cards or coins or structures that you might start with.
Yeah,
and the cards are vines, the different grapes that you'll plant, 2 sets of visitors, summer visitors and winter visitors, and wine orders.
Yeah.
And those are the cards that you're collecting to fulfill wine orders throughout the game. The mamas and papas just dictate which you start with, but then you don't really use them again after that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And so, like, the upgrades then. So if everyone's trying to make money, but you're constantly spending money as well on, like, interesting things like a yoke for your oxen, and bigger wine cellars,
and then bigger
and
wine cellars again,
even bigger ones than the first ones. You think they just make it big in the first place, but no, wildly underestimate the capacity. Cottages, irrigation channels. I think there was a windmill in there as well.
Trellis, tasting rooms, all these little wooden structures represented by wood on your board. So it's a bit Scythe-like. You're building your monuments and buildings as you go. But like Daz said, without the mechs and violence. And again, too much mechs and violence.
And all those buildings do make at least a token of thematic sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there is something that you would have and you would do. And that building the idea and seeing your vineyard grow quite quickly and quite effectively was really nice.
Yeah, and whereas in Scythe, if you have like certain resources, you can build bigger and badder mechs. In here, you can build, if you have certain structures, you can build bigger and badder grapes. And those grapes are worth more and more points. And then you can turn them into better wines in your bigger and badder cellars.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it? Like the grapes don't get converted directly to wine. They've got to go into like the crush pad first.
Yeah.
And if you leave that, then they can kind of like grow in quality year on year, and then you start bottling them up.
A certain satisfaction of that particular action as well, wasn't it? Of getting the crush to the wine. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like
you're just moving a glass bead across from the crush pad into the wine cellar, but you know it's gaining value because it's becoming a commodity.
Yeah.
And then you're hoping to fill that order and sell it off to your punters.
On that mechanism, I had an interesting thing. I played this last night and again today. I had an interesting thing with the aging thing, which is really good, where I was finding my wines getting too good.
Yeah.
So
and then you can't
don't want to waste them.
yeah, exactly. So I had the things lined up, and because you've got limited amount of actions, sometimes you can't always make the wine. But as all the time you don't make it, the wine, your grapes get better. Then all of a sudden you find yourself massively overfilling orders if you use the grapes you have now. I thought that was really good. That I had to make some rubbishy grapes just to fill part of an order that didn't need something so good.
Yeah, or you've got too many rubbishy grapes, so you embark on a bit of mad alchemy and try and make a bit of a fizzy pink wine that, hopefully
sell it off
the
to
tourists will go
Aldi.
mental for. Yeah.
and again, that's nice. I think that's like, I know very little about winemaking, but obviously,
even now,
indeed. But you blend wines together, and you blend wine to different types, and that kind of creates the different kind of qualities of wines. So yeah,
blend the grapes, don't you, Anthony? Not the wines.
No, that's where I went. That's where I went wrong last time. I kept trying to pour a bottle of red wine into a bottle of white wine to make a rosé, which apparently isn't how winemaking works. So I've learned that at least.
That is good. It's good. And then you move it all on to the pesky wine merchants. They're very demanding. They always want, a ridiculous amount of nice wine or rubbish table plonk. And you basically just got to satisfy these demands as best as you can. And at the start of the game, they all seem impossible to fulfill. And by the end of the game, you wish you had more workers so you could fill more and more.
Yeah.
There's a nice little sort of growth gradient in this game where very quickly you feel like you've got this massive vineyard that's got a lot of activity on it.
I was just going to mention that actually. Yeah, there's an unexpected tension ramp. You start off the game and you're just pleasantly planting your vines and whatever, and your grapes and that, and you're harvesting and building your resources in your buildings, and then all of a sudden, like the years tick by, and at the end of each year, as you said, you age the wines and everything, and then all of a sudden everybody's racing for the VPs, and these orders start coming in, and the VP track is going up thick and fast.
Yeah,
and there's like this sudden tension of like, crap, I've only got 6 dudes, or if you've managed to get all your workers into play, I've only got these guys, and I need to fulfill all these orders this year, otherwise Ant is going to beat me because he's like way ahead of me.
Yeah,
and we had a bit of a climactic finish there where I think we all thought it was going to roll over into the following year for everyone to have a chance to catch up, but all of a sudden this situation comes out of nowhere where you're like, oh no, we can end it this year.
Yeah.
And then you play certain visitor cards which combo off your wine orders, and that increase, it might give you 1 extra VP, but because it's the first person to get to 20 VP, it's not actually that many. So before you know it, that goal line is upon you.
Yeah.
And as soon as someone hits 20 VP, that's the end of the game, and everybody else has until the end of the year to catch up and match it. But if that someone does it as their last action of the year,
then that's it, golden. It was interesting to see, because the 2 players that sacrificed VP early on in the game, in order to like get early gains, like like new buildings and stuff.
So there's certain cards that let you do that, right? That put your VP behind to get resources.
Exactly. So you end up on like -2 or -3. You and Ant both did that. Me and Daz didn't. We clung on to ours, but then you were both on like 19 and 20 at the end of the game, whereas we were like 16, 12. So it was interesting to see how sacrificing points like that early on really gave you some decent boons.
Yeah, whereas at the end game that could be devastating.
It is, and now whether or not that is, I think it's playing the cards that you have, and there are certain cards that benefit from that. But absolutely, I certainly, I think in the first game I played, I didn't realize you could go negative. But it definitely is a way that you can build yourself up a little bit quicker and gain that extra turn. And like Tristan says, when you're only going to 20 victory points, a point here and there, an extra action point, makes the world of difference.
Definitely.
I thought it was, given that it is a pure worker placement game, I thought what was an interesting shift was at the start, absolutely, you don't have enough workers and you can only do a few things. You want to more. Towards the end, it's not about the efficiency necessarily of using your workers. You've probably got quite a few.
Yeah.
It's about getting to those places first. And I found myself in a few situations where I didn't have that much to do with my workers at the end because I hadn't got to the places quick enough to be able to make them count. It's
getting those like sexy card combos, getting to the visitor mansion first so you can play 2 blue cards instead of 1.
Yeah, so they all the spaces have a bonus spot, don't you? In the 3 to 4 player games, there's 4 of us tonight. You have 2 action spots in every location. In a 1 to 2 player, you only have the first one, but with when you unlock the second action spot, it has a bonus which is so tempting. It's like a huge target where you can harvest 2 fields or plant 2 vines or have 2 guests visit, and those things, as Anthony says, it becomes a race to be the first person to get them, but you don't know what everybody else is after. You know what you're after, and you'll want some combination of those things, so you'll be competing for first place in the order. So is it time to talk about the cocks?
Always. So
I'm surprised it's taken this long to promise from you.
It's first turn initiative, isn't it? So you have to grab your cocks and place them down on the
roosters.
The roost. Yeah. So it's a lovely little wooden figurine of a male chicken, a rooster, a cockerel. It's a leghorn, foghorns. The only way we could think of describing it. Yeah. But you just literally in player order, you pop them down. Some of them have boons, so like first player is just first player. You can go first. Then you can get a green card, which is a great variety, or get a yellow card, which is a summer visitor. Then it goes down to the final spot, which is number 7, where you can literally get an extra worker, but you go last. So.
Super handy early game though. I mean, it
gives
you,
I mean, you went straight for it, didn't you? First round, second round.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it does make a big difference. And then that then dictates what you're going to be doing that round, like which areas you can kind of run to first. I thought that's quite a nice mechanic, and it sort of balances itself a little bit because you're trying to decide what you need, what you're missing from your hand, because card play plays a massive part in the game. What you might be missing, are you missing a grape variety, are you missing a visitor, versus how quickly you can get to the fields to start planting grapes or harvesting them.
Lovely and thematic as well, isn't it? Because the rooster is,
it's like farmyard.
Starts your day,
farmyard fun. Yeah. You can feed them and get meat later on down the line. Apart from rustic charm, it doesn't really signify winery.
Well, I assumed it was like getting you up, that you rise with the cockerel.
Yeah, that's what
the early bird catches the
early bird.
Yeah,
gets the
grapes.
Less good benefits.
You don't actually get anything, do you?
But that's what I thought. It was like, how early are you getting up?
The visual metaphor was completely wasted on me. I just thought, countryside animal.
Okay,
this could be a pig.
So if it'd been a sheep, you'd have thought that was just as normal.
Bear.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The early bear catches
the early bear
green card.
Wine
catches the
as the expression goes.
Yeah.
The cover's lovely. It's a very placid, languid, serene country scene.
Timeless.
A mama and papa. In a pre-modern time, overlooking a valley.
When is pre-modern? Is it pre-industrial?
Daz?
Prehistoric?
Pre-iPhone?
Well, definitely pre-iPhone. They're probably using an Android.
So about 100 years ago?
Definitely. He's got a Nokia 3210. Yeah. He's programmed his favourite ringtone in there. It's the introduction to Smoke on the Water, and he's impressing her.
Is that
a lot of sarcasm?
Yeah. So,
as well.
In order to get in on the jokes, you probably need to just quickly Google Viticulture and go in an image search. I'm sure you'll be able to find loads of really nice artwork of the Viticulture board box.
What do you think of the artwork?
It's grand. It does the job. It's quite cutesy. It's in that sort of Age of Empires isometric view. You feel like you're looking down from the top of a hill.
The board you're talking about now, the cards.
The board, yes. The cards look nice as well. Just generic sort of cardy artwork, really, is the best way I can describe it. You get a stonemason. It's a man holding a hammer and a chisel. He looks fairly gnarled. You get a judge that you can give wine to, and he looks like he's having a great old time with a glass of wine.
I'm guessing that the mamas and papas were backers of the original Kickstarter campaign.
Everybody looks very homely on these cards, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the people that are in cards, like the cards are based on friends of Jamie or Morton's or their backers.
Morton's in there.
Whatever.
He's one of the cards.
Is he? Please don't tell me he's the stonemason. After I said no.
The names weren't as Italian as I thought they would be for some of the mamas and papas.
No, it's Laura, Matt, Jeff. I don't know. Jeff isn't in there. It could be. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up at the top of my head.
The graphic design is lovely, and the insert is one of the few that I won't throw away So when I get a board game, the first thing that happens is the insert goes, the Home Bargains hobby box comes in with the card sleeves and the Ziploc bags, whereas this has a really neat little box, lovely design, and it's just everything fits so nicely. It's proper. It's just a Stonemaier game, every time.
The component quality is up there. Speaking of graphic design, though, I think the player boards let it down a little bit because on the game board, you've got all these little spaces that are circled and highlighted where you can put your meeples.
Yeah.
Big meeples go on top of the actual artwork that represents, going to the market. So that's easily done. But then when you're using your own sort of like little farm tile to keep track of what you're doing with your wine, you can build like your trellis, and it says this is a trellis area, but then there's no little sort of slot or little sort of like shaded out area where I want to put the trellis down. And when I was expanding my cellars, I had to sort of like poke it at the edge of the player board at the bottom and kept knocking it over.
Right. Yeah, so unlike the indentations in the sides,
it just felt like it just needed a little area marking out. I'm sure it was maybe designed with the freedom for people to put it down where they liked.
There's some confusion between cellars, cottages, and
there was a fairly clear thing where a lot of those little buildings look very similar.
Yeah,
and I suppose there's a space for them, so it doesn't really matter. It's not going to be confusing. I don't think it's going to mess up the game if you accidentally put your trellis where your tasting table's supposed to be. Yeah. But yeah, for completeness, they could have been a little bit more different.
So the tasting room mini figure that's representing a table. That makes a lot of sense because I was just like, maybe it's a hut.
Trellis without a grape.
Well, essentially different versions of huts.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It goes up, it goes horizontally, and it drops back down again. Sometimes there's more angles involved.
You're not going to mistake the windmill, though. That really did.
No, not
look
at all.
The part,
yeah, it was nicely done, that one. But other than that, it's a very sort of a nitpicky criticism for it to make. But I just thought it was interesting.
It says 45 to 90 minutes playtime. That was pretty
we
much
smashed it out in about that.
Yeah. There was no trouble from you guys picking up the rules. We were up and running.
No, it was fine. About three turns in. Yeah. The first round was interesting. I was just trying to like feel out what I was meant to be doing or how I was meant to be doing it. But then you're quickly up and running.
Yeah, there's a sort of very basic process of get the grapes, plant the grapes, harvest the grapes, turn the grapes into wine.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff is like peripheral stuff that makes all that process better.
Definitely.
I feel I missed out a little bit with the not training new employees.
Training expensive.
The workers,
it's expensive though. I can see why you didn't do it. And I only got a couple of workers out because I just spammed a few cards. I think Ant did the same thing. I saw you throwing a few cards out there that gave you workers.
Having only played this a couple of times, maybe I'd say, but I would speculate it is very, very hard to do well without getting those workers out.
You were feeling a pain, Daz, weren't you, towards the end, I think, with just a couple of guys.
Well, by the end, it was always just a small family-run vineyard, so I didn't really want to get any other employees in. It was just,
didn't want to dilute the quality of the workers.
We turned the trellis into a holiday home, so we were getting income from different sources anyway.
It was
enjoying it, really.
A very uncomfortable hammock.
Oh yeah, just turn it upside down. Perfect.
Yeah, but you didn't end up too badly on the track. Did you end up with like 12 victory points?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was just got lulled into a bit of a false sense of security at the start, with the pace being quite slow and just getting your little sort of conveyor belt going, kind of thing, which is you can quite happily chugging along. I think as well the visitor cards were more important than I thought to start with. I think I had a few duff ones. But there seemed to be some
some duff ones
towards the end.
Yeah, I think it's the same problem with all the decks. There's some like real duff ones, and then there's some really good ones. There seems to be some nice middle of the road like wine merchant cards. So like the deals that you make to sell the wine. Same with the grapes. I've got one grape variety that needed irrigation and trellis, which luckily I had, but otherwise that would have just been stupidly expensive to try and get out on the board.
That's a tough wine to bring into play at the start, isn't it?
But then one visitor will be like, right, train a worker for like 1 gold. And then another visitor will be like, get 16 more visitors. And it's like, well, it's not as good. And you have to really keep like cycling through that deck in order to find these good quick hit cards. Because they are in there and you can really do well off them.
I think those visitor cards make it to a large extent.
Yeah.
I think without that, because this is it is a very straightforward worker placement game. Going into this, there's a lot of worker placement games now that have some kind of twist. We were talking about Architects of the West Kingdom, which is, again, in some ways a very simple worker placement game, but it does have a kind of a key twist, which I don't think this does. I think it is very kind of straightforward worker placement. But those worker card, those visitor cards are where you really change the cadence, where you really stop it just kind of going round and we all do our thing, then we all do the next thing, we all do the next thing. Those things really allow you to accelerate things out in turn or do a lot more of something than you would do normally with that worker placement. Yet for me, they really make the interesting tension and the different speeds of the game.
Some of them involve other players as well. So I think you had a couple, didn't you? Where it was like, right, if you can't give me this,
then I'm going to get
a
VP.
I think competitive.
And had a really good one where it was harvest a field or make 2 wines or do a deal, and you can do 2 of the 3.
Two of the 3.
So you did really well off the back of that one. There was some really good cards coming out.
Yeah, the winter guests are better, aren't they? So the game's split into 2 halves, like each year, where you do the summer actions, which is like planting the fields and having summer visitors and doing tours, and then you have the winter actions where it's harvesting the fields and turning stuff into wine, but really importantly having the winter guests come. And so the race for the spots sort of evolved over the course of the game as well, because you're racing to harvest the fields, then you're racing to make wine, then you're racing to fulfill orders, and then everybody sort of realised Ant was sweeping up all these winter visitor cards and playing 2 every year and just spamming them out with all these different combo effects, and the rest of us were like, okay, we need to do that too. And all of a sudden it becomes a race to do that as well, but then you've got to accumulate the right cards to be able to make them worthwhile and work at the stage that you're at. So yeah, definitely that adds all of the variety and all of the interesting sort of tensions and combos.
Did we all have fun though? Was it a fun game, or were you just like going through the motions?
I think I'm going to tell us a little bit, but when Tristan introduced me this game yesterday, I initially had a bit of a red flag because for me personally, me and my wife, we bounced off Charterstone quite hard. Just did not kind of. We were playing 2-player. I don't think that's necessarily optimal, but that small steps building up, just a few workers, then harvest them back and do it again, just really didn't work for us. And in this game, I think you start with 3 workers, and there's this whole plethora of different action spots. And I could say, okay, we're going to get the same experience out of this. This just slowly building up. And I have to say, not at all. It really was a kind of, while mechanically you were doing a lot of similar kind of things. For whatever reason, it just felt like it executed, accelerated quickly. There wasn't that kind of spending a turn, scooping up your workers, which I know a lot of worker placements have. Felt like it kept going. So for me, absolutely. In the way I've found some worker placement games not to be so much fun, really, really enjoyed this.
Excellent. Yeah, it feels quite aerodynamic. There's not a lot of like fat in the game where, like you're saying, it's like mechanics that are just there for the sake of it. Everything seems to be like well thought out. There's nothing that really absorbs too much time except for like just making a decision of which card I'm going to play at this moment, which area I'm going to visit first. If I visit this area over this one, someone's going to beat me to it. So which one's really important? It's the usual sort of like worker placement, decision making nightmare, but in a good way. Nice and fun. I just had a great time with it. It was just nice, quick, easy to learn, easy to play. And you can just pretend that you're doing the wine thing.
I agree with both of you. I think first game tonight, it was paced really nicely. You can almost get caught off guard a little bit, like I did with the sort of slower pace at the start. But as nice and twee as the sort of subject matter is, like when you see those other people's victory points going up by 5 or 6 or 8 at a time, then you do give yourself a bit of a kick up the arse, or you work as a kick up the arse if you've employed it.
That's it. You're like, everyone gets about 2 VP in the first like 7 turns.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one person's won it and you're like, came out nowhere.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mentioned to Morton that I'd picked it up, and he said, "What the hell are you buying it for? It's €1 and it's got no goblins or dice in it." And I was like, "Oh," but no, I'd always been like keen to like figure out where the Stonemaier Games had come from, and this was I think it's the first game. And the winemaking theme interested me. I definitely had it in my head that I'd sit down with Francesca and we'd play this and have some wine whilst we're playing it, which we did. And we both really enjoyed it. I mean, it just went at this sort of languid pace and then ramped up with that tension ramp that we talked about before, where all of a sudden, we've gone from having a nice glass of wine and playing this lovely game to just being at each other's throats like, oh my God, it's,
that's the hangover section.
Yeah. But both loved it. And then obviously introduced it to Anthony yesterday and we had a good time with it. And again, tonight with 4 players, it changes again because you add the extra action spots, which have these bonus actions that you can do as well. And that changes the game from a 1 to 2 player game as well. And I think there's a lot more in this than probably I was expecting, to be honest. You're in for a quality game with Stonemaier Games, but Viticulture, if you'd mentioned that to me a couple of years ago as the name of a game, it would have completely held no interest for me. But here I find myself playing this competitive winemaking Euro.
Yeah,
and having great fun with it.
It sort of when we were looking at the game, it made me wonder if Jamie Stonemaier is like really into winemaking culture, and he's like, he's read about it previously and he thought I'd visit it for a game, or whether he thought that it's such a Euro theme. It's like it's winemaking, it's based in Italy, it's going to make a great sort of worker placement Euro game. So he just ran with it and did all the research. Right, I'd like to know, if did the cock run before the egg really in this game?
That info will be out there. I'm sure he'll have talked about it.
Totally, yeah. It's just, but yeah,
we'll get him on the show and we'll ask him.
Excellent. A great idea. Okay, then. Well, thanks very much for listening. As always, please like and subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a little review. We love the 5-star ratings. We to be honest, we'd settle for a 1-star rating.
Any ratings I do.
Any rating, any feedback, apart from shut up, I'm trying to sleep.
Although if they did send that, we'd appreciate that feedback as well.
It is, yeah, actually.
Still feedback, Leki.
It is.
That's engagement.
You can't buy engagement. Literally, I've tried.
On Facebook.
They take your money and walk away. Okay, until next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks very much.